Welcome back to the Deep Dive. I want to start today by asking you to just reset your mental calendar for a minute.
Okay.
Forget the headlines you saw this morning. I want you to imagine a world where if a crime happens and, there isn't an eyewitness and there isn't a perfect, clean fingerprint left on a smooth surface. Well, that's it.
It's over.
It's over. The case goes cold. It's pretty hard for us to picture that now, isn't it?
It's a completely different universe. It really is. We just take this kind of forensic omniscience for granted now.
Total.
We just assume that if you leave any kind of biological trace, you're caught. End of story.
Yeah, a hair, a drop of sweat, anything.
But for the vast, vast majority of human history, I mean, right up until a very specific moment in the mid-1980s, biology was silent. It just couldn't talk to the police.
And that is exactly what we are digging into today. We aren't just looking at another true crime case. We are looking at the case.
The one that started it all.
The big bang of modern forensics. The absolute pivot point for the entire world, really, from, he said, she said, and circumstantial evidence too. Absolute scientific certainty. We are talking about the Colin Pitchfork case.
And it's massive. It's not an exaggeration to say that if you've ever watched a police procedural like CSI,
Any of them.
or if you've followed a high-profile trial in the last, 30 years, you are looking at the ripple effects of what happened in two tiny little villages in Leicestershire, England.
But here's the thing, and this really surprised me when I was going through this stack of research for this deep dive. I knew the name Colin Pitchfork.
Sure, it's famous in these circles.
Right. And I knew first DNA conviction. I sort of thought that was the whole story.
Yeah, a neat little package. Science wins.
Exactly. Science wins, bad guy caught. Roll credits.
Okay.
But the actual timeline is so much messier and, frankly, so much more terrifying.
Oh, it's incredibly messy.
It's not just a science story. It's this story about a master manipulator, a community living in just absolute terror, and a justice system that almost let the killer walk away after the science had already been invented.
That's the absolute key to this whole thing. The science was the tool, and it was a perfect tool, but the application of it was flawed.
How so?
Because it relied on people. And, people lie. People are afraid. People make huge mistakes.
And it's also worth pointing out, this isn't some piece of ancient history. I know we're talking about the 80s, but the final chapters of this whole saga, the legal battles over Pitchfork's freedom were happening just a few months ago.
That's right. We are recording this in February 2026, and the parole board was making decisions on this guy in October of 2025.
It's a 40-year saga. It's just incredible.
It really is.
So, okay, let's get into it. Let's go all the way back to the beginning. Because before we can even get to the murders, before we get to the labs and the DNA, we have to look at the man himself.
The man at the center of it all.
Because on paper, if you looked him up in the early 1980s, Colin Pitchfork doesn't look like a monster. He looks like a baker.
And that's the banality of evil, isn't it? He looked completely normal. Colin Pitchfork was born in March 1960. He grew up in a place called Newbold, Verdon.
Okay.
And if you were to pull his file from that time, it just screams model citizen. He was so deeply embedded in the scouting movement.
And not just like a casual member.
Oh, no, not at all. I don't mean he went camping once or twice. He was serious about it. He gained the Chief Scouts Award in 1976.
Which is a huge deal, right?
It's a very big deal. It takes years of dedication. And get this. He was one of only 4 scouts in the entire county of Leicestershire chosen to attend the World Scout Jamboree in Norway.
Wow. 4 out of the whole county.
The whole county. That's an honor. That's, it's reserved for the most reliable, the most upstanding kids, the absolute cream of the crop.
And his family was involved too, wasn't it?
Deeply. His mother, Molly, was a group scout leader. So the entire family identity was built around this idea of community service, discipline, wholesomeness, all of it.
So you have this golden boy image. He seems to be on the right track. He then gets married in 1981.
To a social worker, no less.
Which, again, that signals caring profession, right? A stable, community-minded life.
It really does. And they settle down in Littlethorpe, which is this quiet, picturesque English village.
The kind of place where nothing bad is supposed to happen.
Exactly. They have 2 kids, and he works at Hampshire's bakery, a steady job,
And we should say he wasn't just, an average worker there.
No, and the details here are so telling. The reports all detail that he was a highly skilled sculptor of cake decorations.
A sculptor, that's the word they use.
That's the word. Piping these intricate little icing flowers, making delicate figures. It implies this high level of manual dexterity, of patience.
Attention to detail.
Tremendous attention to detail. He wasn't just mailing it in. He actually had dreams of starting his own business one day.
So to his neighbors, to his wife's colleagues, to the community at large, he's this hardworking dad who makes beautiful cakes and probably knows how to tie, 1,000 different knots.
The perfect neighbor, the guy you'd trust with your house keys.
But, and there's always a but in these stories, that facade, that whole perfect image, was actually extremely thin if you were paying attention.
Very, very thin.
Because while he's at work making these delicate, beautiful cakes, his behavior at the bakery was, it was raising some red flags.
Big ones. His supervisor is quoted as calling him a good worker, but also moody.
Moody, okay.
And specifically, he had a reputation for pestering the female employees.
Pestering is such a mild word for what it probably was.
It is. The source material says, and this is a direct quote, he couldn't leave women employees alone. He was constantly pushing boundaries.
And this is where we really have to stop looking at the family man image and just look at the clinical reality. Because before he was even married, these cracks were already showing. Big ones.
Oh, yeah. This wasn't a sudden snap. In 1977, when he was just 17 years old, he was fined for indecent exposure.
He exposed himself to a schoolgirl.
A schoolgirl. And then it happened again in 1980, this time to a group of teenage girls in a town called Earl Shilton. He was actually referred for therapy at Carlton Hayes Hospital for this.
Okay, I want to pause here because I think, we often dismiss indecent exposure. We hear that and we think of it as, a nuisance crime.
Right, a creepy guy in a trench coat who's maybe harmless but just gross.
Exactly. But when I read the transcripts of his later confessions, the sheer scale of this behavior just blew my mind. He didn't just do this a couple of times.
No, he wasn't just experimenting. He admitted, in his own words, to exposing himself to more than 1,000 women.
1,000? I mean, that's not even believable.
1,000, starting when he was a teenager. Just stop and think about the logistics of that, the time commitment, the planning.
It was a compulsion. It was a second life.
It was a predatory campaign. 1,000 victims is not a prank. It's not a phase. That is a pathology.
And yet, he's still functioning in his other life. He's winning Scout Awards while he's doing this. He's getting married while he's doing this. It's this terrifying ability to just compartmentalize his life into these two separate boxes.
It's the absolute hallmark of his psychology. He could perfectly separate the baker from Littlethorpe from the predator.
Yeah.
But the problem with that kind of compulsion, especially with sexual deviancy, is that it rarely stays static. The thrill of just exposure, it wears off.
The shock value isn't enough anymore.
It's not enough. You need more power. You need more control. And that is what always leads to escalation.
And that escalation takes us to November 21st, 1983. And this is where the story shifts from, creepy local guy to a tragedy that absolutely breaks a community. We need to talk about Lynda Mann.
Lynda was just 15 years old, a normal, happy teenager living in the village of Narborough.
Right next to Littlethorpe, where Pitchfork lived.
Exactly. It was November, so it gets dark really early in England. She had been babysitting.
Which is just the most relatable teenage thing in the world. Earning a bit of pocket money.
It is. She's walking home. And she decides to take a shortcut. Now, local geography is really important here to understand this. She took a path that was known locally as the Black Pad.
Even the name just sounds ominous, doesn't it?
It really does. It's a deserted footpath that cuts through the area. You know the kind of place, it's convenient during the day, but completely isolated and unlit at night.
And she never made it home.
She never made it home. Her body was found the next day.
The details of the attack they're brutal. And I don't want to be gratuitous here.
Yeah.
But we have to understand what happened to understand the investigation that followed.
You do. She was raped and she was strangled.
So the police arrive, they secure the scene, they do all the things they're supposed to do, they collect evidence, but this is 1983. So what did forensic evidence even look like back then?
It was, compared to today, incredibly primitive. They did find a semen sample on her body.
Okay, so in 2026, that's game over.
Instantly. You run it through a database, you get a name. Done.
But in 1983?
In 1983, the best they could do was serology, basically, blood typing. They analyzed the sample, and they found it came from a man with type A blood and a specific enzyme profile, PGM1 plus UMNO for the experts out there.
Okay, so help me understand that. How specific is that profile? Is that like a fingerprint?
Not even close. Think of it like describing a car. The police could say, okay, we are looking for a man who drives a red Ford Fiesta.
Right.
Now, that helps. It rules out all the guys driving blue trucks or silver motorcycles. But do you have any idea how many red Ford Fiestas are on the road?
Thousands. Tens of thousands.
Exactly. In this case, the blood type and that specific enzyme profile matched about 10% of the entire British male population.
10%.
10%. So in a cluster of villages with a few thousand men, you're still talking about hundreds, maybe even 1,000 potential suspects. It wasn't an identifier. It was just a category.
So they have this red Ford Fiesta description, but they have no idea how to find the specific driver.
None. They interviewed people, they checked alibis, but they had nothing solid to go on. And the case, it just stops.
It goes cold.
Ice cold.
For 3 years.
I just want to linger on that gap for a second, because when we read these summaries, it just says, 1983, Lynda Mann died. 1986, Dawn Ashworth died.
Like it's just a data point on a timeline.
Right, just a sentence. But in reality, that is 3 full years. That's 1,000 days of parents in Narborough locking their doors tighter. 3 years of teenagers being told never, ever to walk alone.
And 3 years of Colin Pitchfork walking among them.
Living his life, baking his cakes, raising his own kids, going to the pub.
But he wasn't dormant. And this is the part of the timeline that often gets skipped over, but it's absolutely vital for understanding his psychology. He didn't just stop and then start again. He was testing the waters. He was active.
Right, the interim attacks.
In October 1985, so that's 2 years after killing Lynda, he attacked another 16-year-old girl. This time he used a screwdriver and a knife.
And she survived. She survived. He assaulted her, but she survived. But the incident that really truly reveals the twisted nature of his mind happened in June of 1986. The victim was a woman named Liz Knight.
I have to be honest, reading the police report on the Liz Knight incident, it made me feel physically sick. And it wasn't even the violence of it, it was the psychological torture.
It was pure, calculated sadism. He picks her up in his car. She accepted a lift, which people did back then.
Sure.
He then drives her around for 40 minutes. She starts to realize something is terribly wrong. He's not going where he said he would. She's in trouble. In a moment of panic, she grabs the steering wheel to try and crash the car or just force him to stop.
And his reaction is just not what you'd expect.
Not at all. His entire demeanor changes. He doesn't hit her. He doesn't scream at her. He becomes calm.
He puts his hand on her knee.
He puts his hand on her knee and says so calmly, it's terrifying, I haven't hurt you yet.
It's so manipulative. The yet is doing all the work there.
It's pure control. He's saying, I have the power of life and death over you right now, and I am choosing to let you live. For now. It's a game to him.
And then he drives her home.
He eventually drives her home. But then, after all this, he has the audacity to ask for a goodnight kiss.
No. After kidnapping and terrorizing her.
Yes. And when she, obviously terrified, refuses, he says to her, I bet you would never accept a lift from a stranger again.
He's teaching her a lesson.
He's teaching her a lesson. He was getting off on the fear he could instill. He was playing God with her safety. It shows that he wasn't just acting on some, uncontrollable animal impulse. He was enjoying the game. He was savoring it.
But the game turned deadly again just 1 month later, July 31st, 1986. Dawn Ashworth.
And the parallels to the first murder were just horrifying. Dawn was 15, just like Lynda.
Both students at the same school, Brockington High School.
Both taking a shortcut. This time it was near a place called 10 Pound Lane.
Another one of those isolated footpaths.
Exactly. And the attack was savage. Raped, brutally beaten and strangled. When the police arrived at the scene, the modus operandi, the method of the kill, was identical to the Lynda Mann case 3 years prior.
And the forensics. Tell me the forensics matched.
They did. The semen sample came back from the lab. Type A blood, same PGM1 plus enzyme profile.
The red Ford Fiesta.
The red Ford Fiesta was back. The police knew instantly the monster is back. Or, more accurately, he never left.
You have to imagine the atmosphere in that community. 2 dead girls, same age, same school, killed in the same way, on footpaths within a few miles of each other. The panic must have been absolute.
It was fever pitch. You had parents refusing to let their kids out of their sight. You had this vigilante feeling bubbling up under the surface. And you had immense corporate pressure on the police.
Right, because Dawn's mother worked at Nextplike, the big closing retailer.
She did. And the chief executive, a man named George Davies, put up a £10,000 reward for information.
That was a lot of money in 1986.
A huge amount of money. The police were under unimaginable pressure to catch this guy before he killed a third time.
And usually when the police are under that kind of intense pressure, they find a suspect. They need a suspect.
They do. Enter Richard Buckland.
Richard Buckland was unfortunately the perfect scapegoat.
He really was. He was a local 17-year-old kid. He had some learning difficulties. He was already known to the police for, minor things.
And crucially, during questioning, he revealed details about Dawn Ashworth's body.
He did. He knew where she was found. He knew about some of her injuries, details that the police had not released to the public.
And that's usually the smoking gun, isn't it? The thing they say in court.
Yeah.
Only the killer would know this.
Usually, yes. But with someone like Richard Buckland, who is suggestible, eager to please authority figures, it's complicated. He might have seen something, or maybe he just overheard rumors and repeated them as fact. We don't know.
But the police drilled him.
For days. And eventually he broke. He confessed.
He admitted to killing Dawn Ashworth.
He did. He signed the confession. But, and this is the snag that bothered the detectives, he vehemently denied killing Lynda Mann.
Which didn't make any sense to the police, right? Because their red Ford Fiesta evidence, the blood type, the enzyme, said it had to be the same guy.
Exactly. The police were convinced Buckland did both. Their theory was, okay, he's admitting to the recent one because he's cornered, but he's blocking out the memory of the one from 3 years ago.
So they needed a way to scientifically link him to that first murder.
Yeah.
They needed something better than just blood types.
They needed a miracle. And that brings us to the University of Leicester, just a few miles away from where all this horror was unfolding. There's a guy in a lab coat who has absolutely no idea he's about to change the world forever.
Alec Jeffries.
Dr. Alec Jeffries. He was a geneticist, and he was studying inherited variations in DNA. He wasn't looking for a crime-fighting tool at all.
So what was he doing?
He was trying to track genetic markers for things like paternity tests or solving immigration disputes, proving family relationships.
Okay, so a totally different field. What was the eureka moment then?
It was actually pretty mundane, which is how great science so often works. It was September 10th, 1984. He was in a dark room looking at an X-ray film of some DNA experiments he'd been running.
Right.
And he noticed that there were these patterns in the DNA. Regions of DNA that repeated over and over. They're technically called variable number tandem repeats, or VNTRs.
Okay, let's keep it simple.
Let's think of it like a barcode. The kind you see on a can of soup at the supermarket?
Sure.
Every single person on the planet has a unique barcode in their DNA inherited from their parents. Jeffries looked at this X-ray film and had this sudden realization, wait a minute, I can distinguish one individual from another just by looking at this pattern. It wasn't just a category like blood type. It was absolute one-of-a-kind identification.
So the police hear about this newfangled DNA fingerprinting, and they think, great, this is our miracle. Let's use this to nail Richard Buckland for the Lynda Mann murder.
That was the plan. They approached Jeffries. They gave him the semen samples from both crime scenes, and they gave him a vial of blood from Richard Buckland. They were expecting Jeffries to come back and say, yes, the barcodes match. Buckland killed both girls. Case closed.
And what did he say?
He ran the test. He developed the film. He looked at the barcodes. And he gave the police the absolute shock of their lives.
Okay.
He said, the semen samples from the two girls have identical DNA. So yes, one man killed both of them.
Okay, so that part's confirmed.
But he said, that man is not Richard Buckland.
Wait, pause. The guy who confessed?
The guy who confessed, the guy who knew details about the body, the guy who was sitting in a police cell ready to be charged with 2 murders was innocent. The DNA proved it, definitively.
This is such a pivotal moment. I mean, the first ever use of DNA in a murder investigation wasn't to catch a bad guy. It was to save an innocent one.
It's incredible. Without Alec Jeffries and that X-ray film, Richard Buckland goes to prison for life. He would have been branded a monster. He likely would have died in prison. The science saved him. It proved beyond any doubt that his confession was false, a product of pressure and confusion and his own vulnerability.
So on one hand, this is a massive triumph for justice. An innocent man walks free. But on the other hand, the Leicestershire police are back to square one.
Actually, they are worse than square one. Now they have no suspect at all, and they know for a fact that their killer is still out there walking around.
And they now know their only lead, the red Ford Fiesta profile, it's basically useless.
They were desperate. They knew the killer had to be a local man. The geography of the crimes, the footpaths, it all screamed local knowledge. So they decided to do something that had never, ever been done in the history of policing.
The blooding.
That's what the press called it. The police made an announcement. They would be collecting a voluntary blood sample from every single male between the ages of 16 and 34 who lived or worked in the 3 local villages.
Narborough, Littlethorpe, and Enderby.
That's right.
Just think about the logistics of that for a second. This is early 1987. There are no laptops to check people in. There are no digital databases. This is all being done with index cards, clipboards, and thousands of vials of blood.
It was a massive, massive bureaucratic operation. They set up these temporary testing centers in school halls and community centers. They sent out letters to every household, and they relied on the electoral roll to make lists of who should be showing up.
But it was voluntary, right?
Yeah.
I mean, legally, they couldn't force you to give blood.
Legally, no. Technically, it was voluntary. You could say no. But this is where the police played an absolute masterstroke of sociology.
What do you mean?
They weaponized the community gossip mill.
Huh.
Think about it. If you lived in Littlethorpe in 1987 and you were a 25-year-old man and you didn't go down to the village hall to give your blood sample, everyone knew.
Your neighbors would notice.
Your neighbors saw you weren't there. Your boss at work asked why you hadn't gone yet. If you refused, the police put you at the very, very top of their suspect list.
So they'd come knocking.
They would interview you, they'd scrutinize you, they would check your alibis for the nights of the murders with a fine-toothed comb. It was a process of elimination by social ostracization.
You bleed, or you're the killer.
That was the message, exactly. And by January 1987, thousands of men were lining up, rolling up their sleeves to prove their innocence.
Now, put yourself in Colin Pitchfork's shoes for a minute. You are the killer. You are living in Littlethorpe. You fit the age profile perfectly. You get that letter through your door.
It is the ultimate nightmare scenario for him. He knows the science works. He's read in the papers how it cleared Richard Buckland. He knows that if he gives his blood, the barcode will match, and he will go to prison for the rest of his life.
But he also knows that if he refuses, the police will be on his doorstep in a heartbeat.
And remember, he has a record for indecent exposure. He is already the perfect kind of suspect they'd be looking for. If they look at him closely, even for a second, they'll get him.
It's a total catch-22.
Yeah.
Bleed and you get caught. Don't bleed and you get caught.
So he realized he couldn't play by the rules. He had to cheat. He had to find a way to make it look like he gave blood without actually giving his own.
And this is where the whole criminal mastermind idea just falls apart, isn't it? He doesn't hack a database. He doesn't break into the lab and switch samples.
No. His grand, brilliant plan is to ask a buddy at work for a favor.
Ian Kelly, a guy he worked with at Hampshire's Bakery.
That's him. And Pitchfork starts grooming him. He concocts this elaborate sob story.
What does he tell him?
He tells Kelly, look, I can't take this blood test. When I was a kid, I got in some trouble for flashing. It was stupid. I was young.
Downplaying it.
Massively downplaying it. He says, if I go down there, the police are going to drag all that up. They'll harass me. They'll harass my wife. I'm a family man now. I'm trying to move on from that. I just want to avoid all the hassle.
He plays the victim.
He plays the victim perfectly. And then he sweetens the deal. He offers Ian Kelly £200.
Which is, what, about 600 or 700 pounds in today's money?
Roughly, yeah. For a bakery worker in the 80s, that's a significant amount of cash.
It's enough to make you think, well, it's just a blood test. It's a bit dodgy, but I'm helping a mate avoid some unfair police harassment.
That's exactly the calculation Kelly made.
So the plan is hatched. Ian Kelly will go to the testing center, but he will pretend to be Colin Pitchfork.
And unbelievably, it worked. On January 29th, 1987, Ian Kelly walked into the testing center. Now you might be wondering, how did he prove he was Pitchfork? Weren't there ID checks?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
The ID checks were incredibly lax. He used a passport that had been manipulated. It had Pitchfork's details. But the photo was either swapped or just not checked closely enough by the person at the desk.
So he just sits down and says, I am Colin Pitchfork.
And they took his blood. No questions asked.
And obviously Ian Kelly isn't the killer. So his blood goes to the lab, the Home Office lab tests it, and the DNA comes back clean. It doesn't match the crime scene samples.
And just like that, Colin Pitchfork was officially eliminated from the inquiry. The dragnet, the blooding, this revolutionary science, it all missed him.
He had slipped right through the net.
He had. He beat the system.
That is absolutely terrifying. He beat the system. The science itself was perfect, but the chain of custody, the basic human honesty required to make the science work, it failed completely.
He could have gotten away with it. He really, really could have. By this point, the police had tested over 5,000 men. They were running out of leads and running out of money.
The trail was going cold again.
If Pitchfork just keeps his mouth shut, and if Ian Kelly keeps his mouth shut, This case stays cold forever.
But secrets are hard to keep, especially after you've had a few pints at the pub.
Especially then. August 1st, 1987. It's a Saturday night. We're at the Clarendon pub in Leicester.
Okay, set the scene for me.
It's just a casual work outing. Ian Kelly's there with a bunch of other staff from the bakery. The drinks are flowing. And maybe the guilt is eating at him a little, or maybe he just wants to brag about the easiest 200 pounds he ever made.
Right.
But he starts talking. He just casually mentions to the group that he went and gave a blood sample for his mate, Colin.
He just says it out loud. Oh, yeah, by the way, I took the murder test for Pitchfork.
Pretty much just like that.
Yeah.
But sitting at that table is a woman named Jackie Foggin. She also works at the bakery. And she overhears this.
Now, this is another one of those moments where human nature gets really complicated. If I heard that, I'd like to think I would run to the nearest phone box and call 999 immediately.
You'd like to think that. Everyone would.
Hey, someone cheated the murder test.
But Jackie didn't do that. She sat on that information.
For how long?
6 weeks. The conversation in the pub was on August 1st. She didn't go to the police until September 18th.
Why? Why would you wait 6 weeks while a child killer is still walking the streets?
I think it's the bystander effect. It's fear. Imagine her internal monologue. Did he really mean that? Was he just joking? If I report this, am I going to get a colleague in serious trouble for nothing? Will the police even believe me?
You don't want to be the one to get involved.
It's a huge, huge step to deliberately insert yourself into a double murder investigation. But clearly it ate away at her. She couldn't live with it, and finally she spoke up.
She calls the police. And that one phone call brings the whole house of cards crashing down.
Immediately, the police grabbed Ian Kelly. He crumbled instantly and admitted exactly what he did.
He was later sentenced for that, wasn't he?
He was. He got an 18-month suspended sentence for perverting the course of justice.
And the very next day, September 19th, 1987, Detective Inspector Mick Thomas drove to Haybarn Close in Littlethorpe.
The door opens, and it's Colin Pitchfork.
And he must have known the second he saw the detective standing there.
He knew the game was over. There was no running. There was no more lying. The deception had completely unraveled, and the reality of his double life just crashed right into his living room.
Did he try to deny it?
No. In fact, he confessed to his wife right there and then with the police standing on his doorstep.
Wait, his wife was there for the arrest?
She was. Can you even imagine that moment? You've been married to this man for 6 years. You have 2 children with him. You've slept beside him every night. You know him as this moody baker who likes making icing flowers. And suddenly the police are at the door and he turns to you and says, "I killed them."
Oh my God, how does she react?
The reports say she just attacked him. She physically went for him. And you can understand it. It's the betrayal, the horror, the sudden sickening realization that the monster was in your house the whole time.
They take him to the station. And now, armed with the DNA knowledge and the story about the failed deception, they interrogate him.
And he sings. He confesses to everything. The flashing, the assaults, the 2 murders. But even in his confession, we see that manipulative personality come out again. He tried to frame the murders as, accidental or protective.
Protective. Protective of who?
Protective of himself. He claimed he only strangled the girls to protect his identity because they might recognize him from the flashing or the initial assault.
He's trying to make it sound logical, like a cold, calculated business decision.
Exactly. I didn't want to kill them, but I had to kill them to stop them from telling on me.
But the detectives weren't buying that for a second.
Not at all. They looked at the brutality of the injuries, the savage nature of the attacks. They cited perverted sadism. This wasn't about protecting his identity. This was about the thrill of the kill. It was about power and control.
And he lied during the interview too, didn't he?
He did. He lied about the level of violence, minimizing what he did, until the forensic evidence forced him to admit the full, horrific truth.
So January 1988, he stands trial at Leicester Crown Court.
He pleads guilty to all of it. 2 murders, 2 rapes, 2 other sexual assaults, and the conspiracy to pervert the course of justice.
And the judge, the Lord Chief Justice, he didn't hold back at all in his sentencing.
Not one bit. He sentenced him to life imprisonment. And he made a very specific recommendation from the bench. He said, and I'm quoting, "From the point of view of the safety of the public, I doubt if he should ever be released."
Ever.
He set a minimum tariff of 30 years, which was later reduced to 28 on appeal in 2009.
So 1988, he goes down, the door slams shut, and usually, that is where the episode would end. Bad guy is caught, The new science has proved right, justice is served.
But Colin Pitchfork didn't just disappear into the prison system. His time in prison becomes this whole new controversy.
And this is where it gets ethically really messy.
It does. In prison, Pitchfork was formally diagnosed with a psychopathic personality disorder and serious psychosexual pathology.
That's a heavy label.
It's a very heavy label. It essentially means his brain is wired for manipulation, for a profound lack of empathy. It's not something you can just cure with therapy.
But he spent the next 30 years trying to prove everyone wrong, trying to prove he had changed.
He was, by all accounts, a model prisoner. He kept his head down, caused no trouble, and he learned a new skill. A very difficult one. He became an expert at transcribing printed music into Braille for the blind.
Which is incredibly intricate, difficult work.
It is. It requires intense concentration, intelligence, and a dedication to helping others, ironically. He was, in a way, contributing to society from inside his cell.
And then, in 2009, he tried to branch out into art.
Yes, the sculpture.
He created this sculpture called Bringing the Music to Life.
Yeah.
It was made of paper, and it depicted a choir and an orchestra. And the Koestler Trust, which is a charity that champions art by prisoners, they exhibited it.
At the Royal Festival Hall in London, a very prestigious venue.
And someone actually bought it.
It sold for £600.
And when the public and the media found out who the artist was,
explosive outrage. The headlines were furious. Child killer sells art for £600. The victim groups protested, understandably. They felt it was a complete slap in the face that he was getting accolades and money while Lynda and Dawn were dead.
the artwork was removed from the exhibition pretty quickly.
It was. But it raises such a difficult question, though. If prison is supposed to be about rehabilitation and a prisoner learns a skill and makes something beautiful, shouldn't that be allowed?
Or does the nature of his specific crime, the rape and murder of children, mean he forfeits the right to ever be seen as creative or redeemed in the public eye?
That's the core tension of his entire time in prison. Is the Braille transcriber and the artist the real Colin Pitchfork? Has he been cured? Or is that just another more sophisticated mess?
Is he just sculpting cakes again, looking like a good citizen while the predator waits underneath?
Exactly. And that question isn't just a theoretical debate. It became very, very real in the last 10 years as he became eligible for parole.
And this has been a legal ping-pong match that is honestly exhausting to try and track.
It really has. It started around 2016. He applied for release. It was denied. But the parole board did recommend moving him to an open prison, HMP Leyhill.
Can you explain what open prison means for those who don't know?
An open prison is the lowest security category. There are no high walls, no locked cells for most of the day. You often have a key to your own room.
It's a step towards reintegration.
It's the final step before freedom. You can go out on unsupervised day release for work or to find housing. It's designed to test if you're ready for the outside world.
And people saw him out and about, right?
They did. In November 2017, he was photographed shopping alone in Bristol. Just a guy in a coat looking at sandwiches in a supermarket. Imagine being another shopper standing next to him having no idea you are brushing shoulders with the Black Pad killer.
So he's ticking all the boxes. He's behaving himself in the open prison.
Mm?
And finally, in June 2021, the decision comes down from the parole board.
They granted his release.
So on September 1st, 2021, Colin Pitchfork walks free. He is 61 years old. He has served 33 years in prison. He is out on license, which means very strict rules, a GPS tag, a curfew, the works. But he is a free man.
He is, and this is the moment where the whole rehabilitation argument gets put to the ultimate test. He claimed he was a changed man. The experts and psychologists said he was a low enough risk.
And they were wrong.
A spectacularly wrong.
He was out for just over 2 months.
79 days, to be exact. On November 19th, 2021, he was recalled to prison. Police showed up at his bail hostel, grabbed him, and threw him back in a closed, high-security prison.
Why? What did he do? Did he attack someone?
He didn't attack anyone physically, no, but he breached his license conditions in a very specific and, frankly, chilling way. The official reason was that he was approaching young women while he was out on his state-sanctioned walks.
Approaching young women.
He was walking up to them, trying to engage them in conversation, testing their boundaries. The reports also said he was showing deceptive behavior with his probation supervisors, lying about where he'd been and what he'd been doing.
So what does this all mean? To me, it just screams that the compulsion never went away.
It never did.
The model prisoner mask was back on, but the guy who needs to dominate and control women was still driving the car.
It completely validated everything the original lead detective, David Baker, had said for decades. Baker always maintained that Pitchfork was a classic psychopath who could mimic normal behavior perfectly but would never, ever actually be safe.
He can learn the words, but not the music.
That's a great way to put it. That recall in 2021 proved that the biology might age, but the underlying pathology remained exactly the same.
But the system is so stubborn. Even after that catastrophic failure, they tried to release him again.
It's unbelievable, isn't it? In June of 2023, a different parole board panel looked at his case and said, okay, he's learned his lesson, let's try again. They approved his release for a second time.
Are you kidding me? After he'd just proven he couldn't be trusted.
No. But this time, there was such a public and political outcry that the government intervened. The Lord Chancellor at the time, Alex Chalk, stepped in and used a new power to block the release, saying it was not in the interest of justice.
Thank goodness.
The release was blocked. And then that brings us right up to the present day, really.
Late 2025.
In October of 2025, just a few months ago, the parole board reviewed his case yet again. And this time, they finally denied him completely. They also refused his request to be moved back to an open prison.
So as we're talking, Colin Pitchfork remains in a closed, secure cell.
He does. And the families of Lynda Mann and Don Ashworth can, for now, breathe a little easier.
It really feels like we dodged a bullet. Or rather, the women of whatever city he'd be living in dodged a bullet in 2023.
We absolutely did. And it highlights the fundamental flaw in relying on data points like good behavior in prison to assess risk for someone like him.
A psychopath is great at being a good prisoner.
They're the best at it. They know the rules. They know how to manipulate staff and psychologists to get what they want. It's what they do when the door opens and nobody is watching. That's the only test that matters. And he failed it.
Before we wrap this up, we have to talk about the legacy. Because this case is just horrific, but it also changed the world in a profound way.
It's the Big Bang. There's no other way to describe it. Without the investigation into the murders of Lynda Mann and Don Ashworth, we simply would not have things like the National DNA Database.
And that database has solved?
Oh, what?
Thousands of crimes?
Tens of thousands. Murders, rapes, cold cases. The Batman rapist, a serial predator in Bath who evaded capture for years, was caught because of a DNA link. The Benham murders, another cold case.
The Joseph Wambaugh book, The Blooding, is a true crime classic.
Oh, brilliant book.
And the TV show Code of a Killer, if you haven't seen it, you really should. John Sim plays Alec Jeffries, and David Threlfall is just amazing as Detective Baker. It really shows that tension between the clean, pure science in the lab and the gritty, messy police work on the ground.
It's the reference point for everything that came after. Every time you see a headline today about a killer being caught via genetic genealogy on a family tree website, it traces its lineage directly back to that moment. Alec Jeffries looked at an X-ray film in a dark room and saw a barcode.
So, to summarize this whole 40-year story, we have a story of a baker who hid a monster inside him, a scientist who accidentally found the key to human identity, a village that was first terrorized and then mobilized to help catch a killer.
And a justice system that, 4 decades later, is still struggling to figure out what to do with a man who is biologically human but psychologically a predator.
It's also a powerful reminder that technology, no matter how advanced, is only as good as the people who are running it.
Absolutely. The DNA would have caught him, yes, but only because a woman in a pub, Jackie Foggin, finally found the courage to make that phone call.
And in 2021, the science couldn't predict his behavior on the outside. Only his own actions could reveal his true nature.
That is the ultimate takeaway for me. We can map the entire human genome, we can read the 3 billion letter code of life, but we still can't fully map the complexities of the human mind. We can't see the lie behind the smile or the monster hiding behind the good prisoner certificate.
The map is not the territory.
Exactly.
Here is a final thought for you to carry with you today. The science of 1987 caught Colin Pitchfork, but the bureaucratic parole system of 2021 almost let him loose to offend again. In an age where we have perfect forensic evidence, AI profiling, and endless data, have we become too reliant on the numbers? Have we forgotten how to look at the behavior? Are we trusting the spreadsheet more than the reality of the human being standing right in front of us?
It's a question every parole board, and frankly, every one of us who has to judge character needs to ask themselves.
Thank you for listening to this deep dive. Stay curious, stay vigilant, and we'll catch you on the next one.